welcome to another edition of the International Cannabis Conversation. I am your host, Chris Day, co-founder of the Global Cannabis Network Collective. And this week, we're taking a trip to South America and Central America. I've got an amazing guest for us all, Dr. Sandra Carrillo. She is currently in Panama, but at any given time, if you follow her social media channels, she could be literally anywhere in the world. Dr. Sandra is a specialist in cannabinoids-based medicine. She's a member of the Society of Cannabis Clinicians, of the International Cannabinoid Research Society, of the International Association for Cannabinoid Medicine. She is a professor. She's a doctor. She's developing an educational program to train doctors and healthcare practitioners on cannabis and the endocannabinoid system. And the CV is so long, Sandra, that I would rather just sort of have you talk a little bit about your background as well, because nobody likes to hear me just read off this huge list of accolades, skills, and talents. So let's just say you're amazing, and we're really glad that you're here. Thanks for joining us on the International Cannabis Conversation this week.
Thank you so much, Chris. I am very happy to be here and very honored to be a guest of this amazing program. I think this is great what you're doing, because it's very important to give an overview and a broad picture of what's happening all over the world. We know that medical cannabis is a revolution, not just in medicine, it's in the industry. So this is extremely important that through you and through your program, all the people can reach out to different sources of information.
I appreciate that. We do like sort of traveling the world through the computers here as we talk to people. Something kind of unique about you being here is that generally speaking, we're talking with business operators, cultivators, and we touch on the medicinal side of cannabis quite a lot because a lot of them operate in that space. But you're actually filling a role that is needed globally in medicinal markets, which is really helping to educate healthcare practitioners, doctors, and others on cannabis, because the assumption always is that the end user, the consumer, needs the education, but we're still very much in a world where doctors need the education as much as the patients do.
That's true.
So I saw recently that you were down in Brazil doing a recording with a friend of yours along those lines. Tell me a little bit about sort of what your efforts have been and where you see the biggest gaps in education and knowledge. Because I don't want to believe it's willful ignorance. I actually think there is indeed an opportunity gap that we need to fill.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. For me, education is the key to destigmatize the use of cannabis as medicine. So I've been dedicated many years to spread the word, I will say it like that. But talking more in a scientific manner, I see a big gap on the educations for doctors and healthcare practitioners, because as a doctor, I was never taught about what the endocannabinoid system is, how it works. So I see the skepticism of my colleagues because they think there's no science behind, the cannabis is not medicine. So I've been developing different educational platforms in order to be able to give access to doctors from all over the world. And thanks God for the internet that makes this job so easy. So we can record a class in here, and I have doctors from South Africa seeing the content. So this is very important, as I mentioned to you, because I see doctors that they are reluctant to talk about medical cannabis, and they say, "Oh, I don't believe in cannabis." And I said, science is not about belief. This is not a religion. This is scientific evidence-based knowledge. I mean, beliefs are religions and are different type of things. We are not talking in here about beliefs. So the main thing that I do, and for me, that is like the lectures, as I say, they close the deal with the doctors for saying it like that, is first of all talking about the endocannabinoid system, because as I mentioned to you, when you are in medical school, nobody talked to you about that. So we are completely ignorant about that. So once a doctor sees how the endocannabinoid system works, that we have receptors, the way we produce endocannabinoids based on a chemist in our body, and the way that phytocannabinoids from plants interact with these receptors and the enzymes and all these things, it's like the conversation start making sense for doctors. So endocannabinoid system is the first thing that you need to talk to doctors. And then when you talk about scientific evidence, that's the second very important thing, because you can talk about a beautiful theory and a beauty of the biochemistry in our body, physiology, but then if you don't have scientific evidence proving the uses of phytocannabinoids, then you have like half of the job done. So when you present scientific evidence, because most of doctors, they say, oh, there's not scientific evidence. So I come and show a British Journal of Medicine, New England Journal of Medicine, a Nature journal. I mean, different journals, annals of internal medicine journals that are scientific publications. Then the trends and the biases that these doctors have started shifting. So I am very pleased to say that most of the doctors that go to medical cannabis classes or conferences start opening their minds. I wouldn't say that all of them, they walk out of the room and start prescribing, but for me, it's a big winning when I get a doctor who say, I don't believe that, you're just, that doesn't have science behind. When they walk out of the room and they say, oh, this looks like it's something there. So for me, that is like a big win. And then after that is that we need like the trainings and the diploma certifications and the continued education. So I've been focusing a lot on education. As you just mentioned, I am professor of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Panama. And I created a diploma certification in alliance with one of the most prestigious universities in Colombia. And we are training doctors and healthcare practitioners. We have already more than 3 cohorts of doctors graduated from this diploma certification from different countries, Argentina, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela. So we're scratching the surface with education, but I think it's very important to keep doing it and join efforts.
Absolutely. And I want to get into some of those studies and some of what's going on in a couple of these different countries, because I get a lot of questions from my GCNC members and other people around the world. But before I jump into that, I wanted to ask, so, you went to medical school, you got your degree, they didn't teach the endocannabinoid system. When you were first sort of seeking knowledge and trying to educate yourself before you became sort of the expert that now can educate others, how was that process for you? Where did you have to start? What set you on this path and journey?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. What makes me interested in medical cannabis was epilepsy. What is one of the main subjects that I've seen the trend in many countries that legalize medical cannabis is because of epilepsy patients. So I am a volunteer of an epilepsy foundation in Panama, and we help children with epilepsy. And I started seeing these mothers having to fly to other countries because in Panama, medical cannabis is not legalized yet. I've been working with the senators and the National Assembly for almost 3 years, trying to help and support the legalization in Panama. And I saw these mothers try to fly to the States, flying to other countries and smuggling practically the CBD for treating their children. So I started seeing that after these kids have 2, 3, 4 medications and nothing worked, I saw how medical cannabis worked for them. So I thought that maybe something here. So I started going to Canada to conferences because they were like ahead of us here. And then I started going to the States. I was going to Israel and to Europe, and I started training myself and learning and educating myself. As you mentioned, the journey is first you train yourself and you educate yourself, and then you'll be able to share what you have with others. So it's been a long journey, but it's beautiful. And I realized that so far nobody can claim to be the one who knows everything about this, because the beauty of the endocannabinoid system and the beauty about medical cannabis and scientific evidence is that everything is evolving. Whatever I said now in 6 months may change, because a massive amount of research is being released. And since December that we have the UN rescheduling cannabis from Schedule 4 to 1, I see more countries opening a little bit the doors for more research. So this is very, very important and encouraging for all the people who wants to learn and more. And I say that is just one training certification is not enough. You have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it, because this is a very dynamic field, very dynamic.
Yeah, it's the curiosity of science, right? My family growing up, I was the lone non-scientist in the family, but I always found sort of that inquisitiveness behind science and developing theories and then doing the research to prove out truth. So intriguing. And I think sometimes we forget that to get to where we are with medicine or with technology or anything else, somebody had to do the research first and discover, right? And then teach others. And it is neat to, even since I got into the cannabis industry about 6-7 years ago, to have seen how far the knowledge has come and how much more open people are to having the discussions. I did very much the same when I first got in. The first thing I did when I entered the cannabis industry was went to a science conference, because I figured if I went there, I would begin to understand more fully sort of the totality of what the implications were for the business of cannabis and creating those connections. So, yeah, I love it. I love going to science conferences almost as much as anything, because I learn. I don't always understand everything. I don't know all the verbiage all the time, but we do learn a lot from that. So, I noticed recently I think it's on your Instagram, you regularly post studies that catch your eye and research that you think has strong implications for the industry. I wanted to ask you, as you've looked at all of these different studies and research papers from around the world, what are one or two that excite you the most? What do you think have sort of short-term or long-term the most opportunity for impact for people and patients?
Well, since we are in these horrible times of pandemic with coronavirus, since the pandemic started, I was very inspired by seeing scientists from all over the world, starting from Israel, Betty Meiri, starting to see the doctors from Canada doing research on the properties of CBD as an anti-inflammatory and all these things. I remember that was at the very beginning of the pandemic that I had with Steve DeAngelo podcast recording with Dr. Rachel Knox and Dr. Joseph Rosado and myself. And we were supposed to talk about cannabinoids and coronavirus, and it was the beginning of the pandemic, and I was thinking, oh my God, I have to be very careful of what I say here because you don't want to give false ideas to the audience or to the patients. And I remember that back then, a lot of studies started, and right now I see more studies are being conducted in different countries. And we cannot say right now that we have solid or strong evidence suggesting that the cannabinoids will be, and particularly CBD, the answer for this. But I see a very promising tool on cannabinoids, particularly on CBD and terpenes, for helping more the post-COVID symptoms. But saying this, I am also always very clear and very responsible because, as I mentioned, I am professor of university, so I have to speak to the evidence. Right now, we don't have solid evidence that CBD is an alternative for these patients. We don't have the randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, or the rigors of the investigation that it will take for us to say, okay, let's do it because of this. But I see it as a very promissory tool among the other tools we have. And remembering also, too, that there's not much that people knows after 1 year or more of this pandemic, even about the virus per se. It keeps mutating this. But I am very optimistic, and I think we will be seeing more research release regarding to this subject, and I think future will tell. So this, I think for me is very exciting given the times. And of course, I've seen regarding to other pathologies, let's say epilepsy, chronic pain, more systematic reviews, more safety and tolerability studies. And also in epilepsy, I've seen a long-term use study that I liked a lot, since epilepsy is a subject that it really matters to me for the children and everything. Seeing that now we have some long-term studies in patients with epilepsy, and even showing that even after 1 year or 2 years, the patients can keep having improvement on the seizures. So that is very, very important. Also, another study that I recently liked a lot was about alcohol use versus cannabis use in the cerebral thickness of the cortex thickness. So we've seen here that we've been using alcohol, we've been using medications, we've been using other treatments for so many years without even knowing, or maybe knowing, but still doing it. And then we have this, the medical cannabis that is such a novel molecule. And then because of the stigma, is a big fuss in many levels. But I am very happy to see that the stigma is going down because of people like you and like scientists and activists and doctors, that they are gathering together to stick to facts and to science, to show the world that you can use medical cannabis with very good benefits. In my particular case, I always say the patients don't self-medicate, go to the doctor, because the doctor will know how to prescribe. And we know medical cannabis also has interaction with other medications, so we have to be careful in order to preserve safety for the patients. But this is, I think, the medical cannabis is redefining the future of medicine, and my particular way, and it made me reassess the approach that I used to take with the patient. Now I see the patient on a different way, because now I know that they have an endocannabinoid system. So I have to consider always, if there is the pathology the patient has, maybe part of this imbalance of the endocannabinoid system. Before I was thinking, oh, is the heart? Okay, let's go for the heart medicine. Oh, is the bones? Let's go for... Now I have to think, oh, could be the endocannabinoid system involved in this. And we actually have papers from Dr. Ethan Russo talking about the clinical deficiency of the endocannabinoid system. Very important. So I could talk the whole day about this, but
me too. And I do, since you brought up Dr. Russo, I should tell our listeners that indeed, if you look for Dr. Ethan Russo's work and studies, he is one of the people that I see as my go-to also for research on the endocannabinoid system, and really an international thought leader around, new and unique opportunities for focused medicine and improvement in patients. So I had a chance to talk with him at a conference in Mexico in 2019 for a bit and was just blown away. So there are places people can go to learn, and educate themselves. And more, you're right. We need to seek out those doctors who are trained and do know. And when you can't find one in your area, you need to seek out other experts to educate yourself. Because I wish we could say in every country around the world there were people ready to talk to patients about this. But the truth is we're making progress, but it's not the case yet everywhere. And as we go ahead, sorry.
I just love what I see the trend in Latin America, and I just want to go a little bit back about your first question that it was about Brazil. So I see this beautiful trend in Latin America. I've been invited as an honorary professor in Mexico by the UNAM, is one of the Mexican universities, and with the Mexican Association of Cannabis Medicine. I was invited as professor because they have a diploma certification. Also, I was invited as a professor from the University of Peru and the Peruvian Association of Medical Cannabis. And so I see these trends in Latin America. The doctors want education. And last week, as you mentioned, I went to Brazil. We know that Brazil is a very large country, and since they legalized medical cannabis, a very large amount of doctors want to get trained, certified, and educated. So I was working with my dear friend, Dr. Paula Dalstella, and that she's putting together with a group of doctors like from different parts of the world this curriculum to train doctors and healthcare practitioners. Initially from Brazil, because it's a very huge population. So we were just actually recording the classes from there. And it's amazing because doctors in there, they are very, they have like both sides. They're this side of doctors that they really want to learn, that they want to know more, and there is doctors that they still don't want to open their eyes. But I think through these education initiatives, it's contagious. When you see one of your colleagues that now knows about medical cannabis, that is certified, and you were the one who was just like, oh, I don't care. Then you see your colleagues doing it. They say, oh, maybe there's something here. Maybe I'll go and do it, and they'll give it a chance. So that's what I think is very important to break the ice in these communities. They are very, I say conservative, but I don't call conservative a doctor who doesn't want to give a chance a patient to heal. So I don't want to use another adjective, but right. I think that we see how medical cannabis changed the quality of life, not just the patients, the families. So it's a huge impact that you're doing on families' lives. So in Brazil, this is going to be great. I am very excited about this educational platform because we are gathering very actualized information with doctors from all over the world to train physicians and healthcare practitioners. So Brazil is a very exciting place right now too.
Yeah, I have been watching Brazil with interest, and it's neat to see that sort of rising quickly, I think. Whereas, other countries that maybe were perceived as being a little bit ahead, like Colombia, that was moving, now seems to have maybe stalled out a little bit. Like, I'm trying to figure out what's going on in Colombia. Have you been through there lately? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, I am the president of the Colombian Medical Association. So we are a group of doctors from different specialties, psychiatrists, anesthesiologists, and neurologists. That what we do is promote scientific-based evidence. So we have doctors from all over Colombia that are members of our association, because doctors usually want to find reliable information. So being the president of the Colombian Medical Association, I can see we legalized medical cannabis 5 years ago. And just last year, we have for the first time a regulated product to give to our patients for prescription. I say it's bad because it took too long, but at least I think we are the only country in Latin America that right now has available product for patients. So our patients, I am a co-founder of Medicann IPS. We have medical cannabis clinics in different cities in Colombia. And I feel happy just by the fact that I see that our Colombian patients, now they can go to a medical cannabis clinics, walk in and walk out with a prescription, with a regulated medication. In the past, they had to just buy whatever they find in the streets, and that's not safe either. So yes, Colombia was very ahead, and it got like a little bit stagnant, let's say it in there. But I think this year, everything's moving faster. So I am very optimistic about this, and I hope they move fast enough to catch up with what's happening in the rest of the countries. I see Mexico like giving like giant steps, which I'm very happy for my Mexican doctor friends. But as you said, Brazil right now, I mean, the doctors, they still they have a different model when they are prescribing, but it takes a little bit time because they have to import a lot the medication. But still, as I said, for me as a doctor, what it really matters for me is the patients can have access to a medicine, because it's really sad to see children like in Panama that we still don't have the law approved. See these children like seizing or sick, or patients with terminal cancer having to die in very sad conditions just because they don't have access to medicine. And medicine this is about human rights. So I know, I mean, we still, as I said, we're scratching the surface, but I think we gained so much in the last year that whatever we're doing right now for move forward is always in the benefit of the patient.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, Sandra, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. As we're talking and I'm thinking about Brazil and Colombia and Mexico and Peru and Ecuador and, all the other countries throughout Latin America that are making strides in this space, when you started out talking about Canada was in the lead, and of course we've all watched the European markets sort of rise. But the truth is that if the progress continues the way it is, very soon in terms of population and access, Latin America will be the global leader as a regional sort of dominant power, as it were, in the cannabis industry, not only with cultivation, but also with educated doctors willing to prescribe medication. It's fascinating to me. And I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I am so appreciative of you giving us some time here. And I know our audience is as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a great day.
You as well. And to all of you out there listening, if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do. Because every week we come out with another edition of the International Cannabis Conversation and take you around the world to look at what's happening globally in cannabis markets. Have a great week, everybody.